black guy surprised me in the woods. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Love 30K Stories. I am here to share my story with you all. In this tale, I set out for a peaceful walk in the forest, seeking nothing more than a quiet escape. But everything changed when I crossed paths with a tall, enigmatic stranger whose presence stirred something within me, an unspoken urge to explore who he was. As my feelings for him grew stronger, the shadow of Brian's hidden past loomed, threatening to pull us apart. What was meant to be a simple walk turned into an unexpected journey, one that I hadn't planned for. Join me as I share this unforgettable experience. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help the channel grow and keep bringing you more stories like this. My name is Rosa, and I just celebrated my 57th birthday last month. After spending nearly half a century on this earth, I had grown to cherish the simple joys of life: quiet walks, the beauty of nature, and the solitude that comes from escaping the world's chaos. The forest was serene, the air crisp, the sky of vivid blue, and the tall trees casting cool shadows. Yet, as I ventured deeper into the peaceful woods, an unforeseen event unfolded that would change everything. As I rounded a bend, I saw him, a tall, commanding figure leaning casually against a tree. His presence was magnetic, with broad shoulders and a strong, chiseled frame that seemed to claim the forest as his own. His dark hair caught the dappled sunlight, and his sharp jawline added an air of rugged charm. Then our eyes met, and I was captivated by their intensity, an enigmatic blend of power and tenderness that sent a shiver through me. I couldn't look away. "Didn't expect to run into anyone out here," he said, his deep, smooth voice tinged with an amused warmth that drew me closer. I managed to smile, though my heart was pounding like a drum. Neither did I. We stood there, the silence thick with a tension that seemed to hum in the air. My pulse quickened, and a warmth spread through me, a spark I hadn't felt in years. Something magnetic about him drew me in, despite the cautious voice urging me to keep my distance. But caution felt like a distant memory as his gaze locked onto mine, steady and unrelenting. Without thinking, I took a small step closer. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his deep voice carrying easy confidence, his lips curving into a disarming and self-assured smile. I hesitated for a heartbeat before nodding, surprised at how much I wanted his company. Sure, why not? We began walking together, our footsteps naturally falling into sync as we ventured deeper into the forest, the world around us fading into the background. The air seemed to shift, growing heavier and more intimate. Our conversation began light and effortless. However, underneath an unspoken energy simmered quietly. Every so often, our arms would brush, each touch sending a spark through me that I couldn't quite explain. I felt more alive than ever, with a warmth rising within me. The longer we walked together, the clearer it became I didn't want this moment, or this walk, to end. Sometimes I worried for it to end altogether. We reached a small clearing where sunlight streamed through the trees, casting a golden glow over everything around us. He stopped, turning to face me, and I felt the air shift. The world seemed to slow, every sound fading into the background. His eyes locked onto mine, darkening with a desire that made my breath catch. There was a hunger in his gaze, magnetic and undeniable. "You're different," he said softly, his voice low and intimate, wrapping around me like a caress. I swallowed hard, feeling the tension grow thick between us. I replied, "I could say the same about you." He stepped closer and gently brushed a strand of hair from my face. His touch was soft yet deliberate, and the instant his fingers grazed my skin, a surge of electricity shot through me, awakening feelings I had not expected. His gaze and touch carried a raw, almost primal intensity, stirring emotions within me that I could not ignore. I knew we were venturing into dangerous territory, a line we couldn't uncross. But I did not care. I did not want to stop. His hand slid down, resting lightly on my arm, his thumb grazing my skin with a deliberate softness that made my breath hitch. As he stepped closer, the heat of his body surrounded me, and the way he towered over me sent a thrilling rush of anticipation and desire coursing through me. My heart raced, each beat echoing in my ears, and my pulse quickened with an intensity I couldn't control. He murmured. His kiss deepened, and I felt his hand slide down my back, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us. I melted into him, my body responding to his touch. My hand slid up his chest, feeling the hard muscles beneath his shirt. He was strong and solid. His embrace made me feel both small and safe, yet alive with desire. His hands moved lower, resting on my hips as he pulled me even closer, and I felt the heat of his body pressing against mine. The kiss grew more intense and urgent. I found myself losing control, consumed by the overwhelming connection between us. My hands moved to his neck, pulling him even closer, deepening the kiss as my body trembled with overwhelming need. His touch was electric, sending waves of pleasure through me with each caress, igniting a fire deep within that I hadn't felt in years. As his hands slid under my shirt, his fingers grazed my bare skin, and I gasped, my body arching toward him, craving more. He seemed to sense my hunger, his hands exploring my body with a tenderness that made my heart race uncontrollably. Every touch, every kiss, felt like a discovery, and I was lost in the sensation of him, consumed by the way he made me feel alive, consumed by a longing I couldn't resist. He pulled back for a moment, his eyes burning with dark desire, and I watched the way his chest rose and fell, each breath shallow and uneven. The heat intensified, the tension thickening, as I felt the undeniable pull drawing us closer and closer. I knew we were both on the edge, both ready to surrender to the overwhelming need that had been building between us. "I want you," he whispered, his voice hoarse with hunger. "I want you so much." His words sent a wave of electricity through me, leaving me breathless. I nodded, unable to speak, my body trembling with desire. I wanted him too, more than I had ever wanted anything. Before his hands moved to the waistband of my pants, his fingers slid beneath the fabric, and I gasped as his touch sent a surge of heat through me. His fingers were warm and gentle as they explored my body, each movement sending waves of desire that left me breathless. My breath came in ragged gasps as he continued, his hands moving with a skill that made my head spin. The heat inside me intensified, the tension building with every passing second, and I knew I was on the edge, so close to losing control. But I didn't want to stop. I didn't want this to end. His hands moved lower, and a jolt of pleasure shot through me as his fingers touched me, teasing and exploring with a deliberate slowness that drove me wild with need. My body responded to him instantly, every nerve alive with sensation, a burning fire spreading throughout me. I could barely contain the moan that escaped my lips as he continued, pushing me closer and closer to the edge. He pulled me closer, his hands gripping my hips as he lifted me slightly, his body pressing against mine, making my heart race even faster. I could feel him, hard and ready, and the rush of desire coursed through me, overwhelming, almost too much to bear. "You're incredible," he whispered, his voice low and full of admiration. And I was lost in him, completely captivated by the depth of what we shared at that moment. He murmured, his voice thick with desire, as he kissed me again. His lips trailed down my neck, brushing along my collarbone, and his hands were everywhere on my back, my hips, my thighs, each touch sending waves of heat through me. The tension between us grew, building toward a breaking point. Then, finally, he slid inside me, and the sensation was overwhelming, an electric rush of pleasure that took my breath away, leaving me completely immersed in the intensity of the moment, lost in the way we fit together, every part of me alive with sensation. I gasped, my hands gripping his shoulders as he moved slowly, deliberately, each thrust pressing his body against mine. The heat between us was unbearable, the pleasure intensifying with every movement. I could feel myself losing control, surrendering to the overwhelming sensation of him inside me. We moved together, our bodies perfectly in sync, and I could sense the tension building, the pleasure growing stronger with each passing second. Every touch, every shift, deepened the connection between us, leaving me lost in the rhythm, consumed by the fire that burned between us. His hands gripped my hips, guiding my every movement as I moved with him, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The pleasure built with each thrust, each movement sending a wave of bliss through me. The heat between us grew unbearable, the tension escalating to a breaking point. I was so close to losing control, and I could feel him right there with me, his breath hot against my neck as he moved inside me, pushing me closer to the edge. The intensity was overwhelming, and then, finally, I shattered, my body surrendering to the all-consuming pleasure that took over. The pleasure exploded through me, a wave of sensation that left me breathless, my body trembling with its intensity. I gasped, my hands gripping his shoulders as he continued to move, his body pressing against mine, pushing me higher, driving me deeper into the pleasure that consumed me entirely. He wasn't far behind, his body tensing, his breath coming in short, shallow bursts as he reached his release. The overwhelming pleasure took over him, and he collapsed against me, his body spent, his breath ragged. We stayed like that for a moment, our bodies still entwined, our breaths mingling as we tried to catch our breath, lost in the aftermath of what we had shared. The connection still electrifying between us. When it was over, we lay in the clearing, the sunlight streaming down on us, our bodies still tangled together. I could feel his heartbeat against mine, the warmth of his skin against my own. At that moment, a deep sense of satisfaction and happiness washed over me, knowing something had changed, something profound, something irreversible. As the sunlight filtered through the branches above, I sat up, still close to him, our foreheads almost touching. "What now?" I asked, my voice a mix of excitement and uncertainty. I never imagined finding someone like him in such an unexpected place, yet here we were, tangled together, as if everything had led to this moment. His smile broadened, filled with mischief, and my heart fluttered. He said, "Well, I'd like to know more about you. I want to hear your stories, your dreams." Everything in me stirred with a rush of warmth at the sincerity in his voice. I replied, "I could say the same about you," my heart fluttering. "What brought you out here today?" He paused, his expression thoughtful, and then he spoke softly. "I needed an escape. Life has been complicated lately. I needed to reconnect with something real, something raw. I found it in you." I could see the vulnerability in his eyes, and it struck a deep chord within me. I said gently, "I understand," reaching out to entwine my fingers with his. Life can feel overwhelming, and sometimes we just need to step away, breathe for a moment. I smiled, feeling the connection between us deepen, and in that moment, everything felt right. We simply held each other's gaze, and in that moment I felt we were sharing something sacred. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring us together, two souls adrift in the world, finding solace in one another. He asked, "Can we stay here a little longer?" His voice almost quietly. I nodded. "I don't want to rush back into reality just yet." "I'd like that." We settled back down, our bodies fitting together perfectly, and began sharing stories, each tale unfolding like the petals of a blooming flower. He told me about his life, the highs, the lows, and the moments that shaped him into the man he was. I spoke of my journey of love lost and the loneliness that crept in when I wasn't looking. With each word, the bond between us deepened, weaving a tapestry of intimacy that felt fragile and unbreakable. It was a connection I knew I would never forget. The air was thick with the scent of pine and wildflowers, and now and then the wind carried the sound of distant birdsong, creating a perfect backdrop to our exchange. The soft rustle of the trees and the gentle sway of the grass seemed to echo the tranquility we shared. After what felt like hours, he leaned closer, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun. He said softly, "I have to be honest. I've never felt this way. It's like I've known you forever." The moment felt timeless, like we were part of the entire surroundings around us. My heart raced at his confession, a blend of excitement and uncertainty washing over me. "I feel the same. But what does this mean for us?" I asked, my voice filled with both hope and hesitation. He took a deep breath, searching my eyes for understanding. He admitted that he didn't know what the future would bring, but expressed his desire to explore the connection and see where it might lead. A surge of hope filled me as I smiled, a sense of possibility blooming in my chest. I said, "I'd like that too," realizing how long I'd focused on what I thought I wanted, forgetting to leave room for the unexpected. His grin widened, his expression brightening as if my words had ignited a spark within him. "Let's not overthink it," he replied. "Let's focus to enjoy this moment and see where it takes us." At that moment, everything felt right, and I couldn't wait to embrace the journey ahead. He leaned in again, capturing my lips in a kiss that felt like the promise of new beginnings. It was tender yet passionate, a perfect blend of our desires and hopes. I lost myself in the warmth of it, my fingers threading through his hair as I deepened the kiss, feeling the world around us dissolve, leaving only us, immersed in the moment. As we finally pulled away, breathless and smiling, I knew this day would forever mark a turning point in my life. Meeting Brian had opened a door I never knew existed, leading me toward a path filled with new possibilities and rediscovery. In that moment, hope blossomed. I felt an overwhelming sense of excitement for what lay ahead. The sun sank lower on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the clearing that filled me with deep happiness. The light seemed to embrace us, making everything feel peaceful and right. As I stood there, I realized the woods had given me far more than solitude. They had gifted me a chance at love. Looking into his eyes, I knew I was ready to take that chance and explore the beautiful, tangled path ahead. The world around us faded, leaving just the two of us, wrapped in the afterglow of a moment that felt both extraordinary and surreal. As the sun streamed through the trees, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor, I tilted slightly to meet his gaze. His eyes, still dark with the remnants of desire, held a softness that took my breath away. It was as if he could see straight into my soul, unearthing feelings I had buried for years. The sunlight filtering through the canopy made everything feel serene, and in that moment, I realized it wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, something real, blossoming between us in the warmth of the forest. The attraction that sparked between us was undeniable. A connection went beyond the fleeting moments of our encounter. I smiled softly. "You've turned my world upside down," he murmured, his voice low and filled with wonder. feeling the warmth spread through my chest at his words. "Neither did I replied. "I was just looking for a quiet walk, and then you appeared." He chuckled, a deep, rich sound that resonated through the clearing. "I suppose we both wandered further than we intended," he said, and in that moment, everything felt right, as if the universe had led us here. We lay there, our bodies still entwined, savoring the lingering warmth of our intimacy. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves above us, making it feel as though the world beyond had completely vanished. I lifted my hand, letting my fingers graze his jaw, marveling at the roughness of the stubble beneath them. He leaned into my touch, a smile playing on his lips, and I saw the sparkle in his eyes, a mixture of mischief and sincerity. A warmth blossomed within me at his words, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a deeper reason for our meeting, a sense of fate gently unfolding between us. The forest surrounding us seemed to breathe with life, as though it shared in our secret. The air was thick with mystical energy, the trees murmuring as if acknowledging the bond we shared. I spoke gently. Maybe we were. A smile tugged at my lips as I wondered if fate had woven its plan to unite us at this very moment, making everything feel perfectly aligned.